it all starts with a research topic, or uh, perhaps if it's an academic paper, a paper written for a specific assignment, um, uh, there may not be a whole lot of research involved, but it still needs a topic. If you're writing an essay, you still need a topic for that essay. Finding or choosing a good topic is harder than it may seem. When Franziska set out to do her MTH, her Master's in Theology, a big part of it was a thesis she had to write. It had a focus and emphasis in leadership studies, her MTH. And her friend Regina and I had quite a time with her as she tried to come up with the actual topic, tried to formulate it and bring it down to something that was small enough to be doable, because that's the big challenge with a topic. Will it be doable? Most of the time, the initial selection or formulation of a topic is too big. It will require more, usually much more, than is feasible within the time that's available. So Regina and I had a lot of fun with our needles popping her balloons as she tried to come up with a thesis. Women in leadership. Well, yeah, that's a topic, a subject, but my goodness, that's way too big, obviously. Women in leadership in Christian organizations. Well, how many organizations are there? That's not really doable. Eventually, she brought it down to women in leadership in YWAM Germany. Now, that's beginning to sound doable, because that's only one organization in only one country. There's a limited number of locations that YWAM has in Germany. These were people we knew, so it wouldn't be too hard to get in contact with them. So well, that sounded doable. It's still not quite a research topic or a topic to write about. The crucial question is, but what about it? What is it that you want to know about your topic or subject? Women in leadership in YWAM Germany. I think Franziska settled for something like she wanted to know we wanted to understand more about what their experience has been, and especially interesting to her was the question, why are there so few? Why are there so few women in leadership? Well, that's a fascinating question. But if you want to say something about it in terms of why are there so few women in leadership in Christian organizations or even in YWAM, you're asking a question that's way too big. You have to cut it down to size. By focusing on YWAM in one nation, that worked out well. She also had to choose a methodology. How was she going to find out about this? And she chose something that's called unstructured interviews, or half-structured, semi-structured interviews. So she sat down with people and had a conversation with them based on number of questions she had. So that's a way of doing it. What you need is a topic and a research question, or alternatively, it could also be a thesis statement or a hypothesis. Then it's stated absolutely, not as a question, and then you're going to put it to the test. That's usually the way it works in the natural sciences. You have a hypothesis. You're going to test it with an experiment. In other fields, maybe a bit more flexible to have a question and work with the question, since it's not so easy to test things experimentally. Either way is possible, but it's very important that you get this right at the beginning of your work. One way, by the way, to put to the test if your topic is or your question still is too big, ask yourself, what are the parts that go into this? What do I need to do? And what do I need to know or find out to answer this question? When you try to break it down into the parts and into the steps you need to take to answer your question, that's when you may find out that practically it's still too much, too big, it's not possible. When I had to decide on my master's thesis, I was sort of torn between two topics of interest. One was eschatology, the end times, but that's a very big topic. And the other was the book of Isaiah, but that's also a very big topic. You can fill an entire library with the books that have been written about the book of Isaiah. In the end, I settled down. What I did is I brought them together, because obviously Isaiah has, in some prophecies, things to say about the end times. He has a number of prophecies about the distant future and God's ultimate purpose. So what I settled down for was the question, how can we interpret the eschatological prophecies, the end-time prophecies in the book of Isaiah? And for the 6 months that I had to work on this, that turned out to be a good, doable topic for a thesis. So make sure you get your topic right. That's important. If it's anything like the size of a thesis, I would suggest writing a proposal before you really get started with the work. Of course, if your assignment is simply to write a short paper, that would be overdoing it. But it really helps to force yourself to put on paper the proposal, the project that you are going to engage in. Give it a title, have an introduction where you place your topic in the larger field, like with end times and eschatology, end times and Isaiah. I would have to explain how I brought these two together. There's the question, the challenge of these passages in the book with their specific character and their specific challenge of interpretation. That would put the subject sort of on the map. That's a question of interest to people in biblical studies. And then the proposal needs to give the research question or the thesis statement, if you prefer. It needs to put some limits on what you're going to do, to make clear what you're not going to do, perhaps. And it needs a methodology or an approach. How are you going to go about answering this question? Plus a bibliography. In this case, a bibliography with titles that you think are relevant for your topic. At this point, it's simply a list of works of literature that seems relevant and that you will consider and see if it helps you with your topic. Now, something like this, 1, 2, perhaps 3 pages, is very helpful. And even if you're only writing a paper, of course you don't want to write something that long, but even if you're only writing a short paper, I would suggest at least putting your question and your purpose in writing. 1 or 2 sentences. What are you after with this paper? What's your question? What's the purpose it needs to fulfill? Having that in writing will help you to maintain focus, because one of the threats to your paper or your research project is that you start reading something that's very interesting, but actually it's not really related to your project. You don't need this. You're not going to use it or quote it in any way. It's off topic. If you know what you're after, it will be easier to recognize this and put this on the side and say, okay, no, not now. I need to focus on what my topic truly is. And it makes a difference what your paper needs to accomplish. Are you going to argue a case for or against something? Do you want to argue that the doctrine of original sin, for or against? You have an opinion on this that you want to present in your paper? Or are you trying to develop a position or an opinion on something, how a passage of scripture is to be interpreted, or what view of the atonement, how does the atonement work? Do you want to find your own position on this? And so you're going to listen to a number of scholars with different opinions, and you're going to try and determine your own. Or are you going to give an overview? What views are there on this particular doctrine or passage or idea? What is it constructing an overview of opinions or views or the state of scholarship on a particular issue? Or are you actually going to engage in original research, empirical research or other research, and develop something that's new, generate new information and new knowledge? That's a different kind of paper. Probably more than fits into a paper, but who knows? Or are you going to critique something or someone? Is there a particular view that you know about and you disagree with it and you want to present an argument against that view? Now, whatever it is you are attempting with your paper, put it in writing. If you're doing a paper on a particular unreached people group, it may mostly be about collecting information. Still, the question is, what else do you want from this paper besides having information on the people group? Are you looking for keys, how the gospel can be communicated to them, keys that would make the gospel relevant to them? Or is there something else? Are you looking for ways that one could actually live among these people if it's difficult to access them? Again, what is your purpose? What is your question and what is your purpose with the paper?